a long history of making up commissions that have looked into an array of issues, from illegal land allocations to the theft of public funds and even ethnic clashes. And there's no match for the speed of the composition of these commissions and the non-implementation levels of the outcomes. President William Ruto's proclamation, which created the panel on the compensation of victims of protests or demonstrations, adds to that apparent growing list. But the question remains, will there be accountability and justice after or before compensation? The chairperson of that panel, Professor Makau Mutua, who as well is President William Ruto's constitutional advisor on human rights, will be on the bench this evening. I am Ayub Abdikadir, and here are the highlights this evening.
Ule jamaa mwenye nakueleza nikaona ni kama anamsnatch simu, kumbe alimpiga, akapanda tu pale, hata hakuwa na haraka by the way. Akalimpiga, akaingia tu pale kwa bike.
Inside the final hours of Charlo Mbobu, probe into the cold-blooded murder of city lawyer kicks off as DCI vows thorough and speedy investigations.
Hiyo jambo iangaliwe sana, ichunguzwe kwa sababu tunahitaji kuwa na freedom.
Broken and shattered, Mayani village in Makueni County cloaked in silence and sorrow after the fatal shooting of lawyer Mbobu.
Mgonjwa akikuja hapa hata kama labda hajajisajili ama amesajiliwa labda anajifanya malipo yake kila mwezi, anapata huduma ya matibabu.
A special report on universal healthcare. As Kenya marks 3 years of the Ruto administration, we assess the journey, the promises and the pitfalls of the Social Health Authority. Death at a party. Detectives hold 6 suspects of a mysterious death of Victor Mwangi, who allegedly fell from an apartment building in Nairobi's Kasarani area. Njoki Shege is our sign language interpreter. Detectives investigating the assassination of Nairobi lawyer Matthew Charlo Mbobu have been examining the final hours of the slain advocate with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, zeroing in on a meeting at a hotel along Milimani Road between 11 a.m. and 1:15 p.m., followed by lunch with individuals now listed as persons of interest in the ongoing probe. Crucial CCTV footage tracked the lawyer's vehicle from around 5 p.m. in the evening towards his home in Karen, a journey that ended in tragedy just 40 minutes later. As Citizen TV's Ben Kirui details in the following report, eyewitnesses have given chilling accounts of the brazen daylight execution that took place along Magadi Road in Nairobi's Karen South area.
The police say they are now in possession of critical CCTV footage from several points, including private buildings, along the path taken by murdered Nairobi lawyer Charlo Mbobu. The footage is helping piece together Mbobu's final movements, tracing his journey from his city office to Sagret Hotel along Milimani Road. He arrived at the hotel at 11:05 a.m. on Tuesday, where he held a 3-hour meeting with several individuals that are now being treated as persons of interest. Cell receipts and CCTV timestamps indicate that the group shared lunch that cost 3,000 Kenya shillings in total. At 1:45 p.m., the lawyer left Sagret Hotel and headed back to his office. Mobile phone records are also being scrutinized for any clues into the brutal killing. Later that day at 5:09 p.m., Mbobu left his office at Townhouse. Surveillance and phone data show his route through Wabera Street, City Hall Way, Parliament Road, Uhuru Highway, Nyayo Roundabout, and onto Langata Road before diverting to Magadi Road. He was just minutes away from his Boyani home in Karen when assailants who were trailing him struck with chilling precision. Judging by the nature of this stretch along Magadi Road, it is evident that the assailants intended to strike here. Naturally, traffic slows at this diversion, making it an opportune spot for an ambush.
Pande ya kwenda Rongai tulikuwa na jamu kubwa, lakini pande nyingine hatukuwa na jamu. Sasa wakati walipiga kelele nini unafanya? tayari amekalia pikipiki yenye ilikuwa ready pale juu. Sisi sasa tukifika pale tunateremka, watu wanasema ashaenda. Basi watu wa pikipiki wanapale wanasema huyu mtu ameuawa tu hivyo. Tukasema kwani kuna kitu kuuawa pia?
Unajua mimi niliona jamaa na muovertake. Kumovertake bike ikatani. Ule jamaa mwenye nakueleza nikaona ni kama anamsnatch simu, kumbe alimpiga, akapanda tu pole, hata hakuwa na haraka by the way. Akalimpiga, akaingia tu pale kwa bike. Wakamove. Vileza jamaa wengine walikuwa wale wanduzi wanasema, "We, huyu jamaa ameua mtu hapa hivi. Tufanye aje?" Wakaanza kumfuata kidogo. Kumfuata kidogo, mimi vile niliwasha, huyo jamaa sasa akafika pale mbele akapiatua risasi yeye akaenda.
Eyewitnesses say the attackers executed the hit swiftly and fled the scene on a motorbike via the Galleria Mall area.
Muundo hiyo pikipiki inakaa hizi sport bike. Rider alikuwa na helmet, lakini mtu wa nyuma alikuwa amevaa ile maski ile ya jeshi, ile inakaa kama ya jeshi ama ile ya watu wa bodaboda, mask. Ile inaficha tu uso lakini macho inaonekana peke yake.
While the motive remains unclear, investigators confirm that nothing was stolen from the scene. The Law Society of Kenya has condemned the killing, describing Bobu's death as a grave loss to the legal fraternity. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The country's legal fraternity has reacted with shock and outrage to the killing of respected High Court advocate Charlo Mbobu, with the Law Society of Kenya raising concern over the safety of lawyers in the course of their duties. The LSK is describing the late Mbobu, who was an arbitration and evidence law expert, as a legal giant, as Stephen Leto details in the following report.
The gruesome murder of lawyer Charlo Mbobu has sent shockwaves across Kenya's legal fraternity, with the Law Society of Kenya (LSK) raising the alarm over the safety of advocates. In a statement, LSK President Faith Odhiambo mourned the late Mbobu as a distinguished member of the dedicated service and demonstrable legal excellence. LSK said the late Mbobu made consequential contributions to the legal and governance space in Kenya. The LSK described the late Mbobu as a legal giant, saying his murder has left the legal profession petrified at the dire staff of safety for advocates. The LSK stated that the killing had all markings of a predetermined assassination. The LSK further stated that the incident and other acts of violence, intimidation and retribution against advocates of the High Court of Kenya represents a damning test to the administration of justice. Elsewhere, the Senior Counsel Bar, chaired by Senior Counsel Philip Murgor, noted that when actors in the justice chain, including judges, magistrates and advocates, come under attack through threats, harm or even murder, society as a whole is placed in jeopardy. The Senior Counsel Bar called upon the investigators to bring the perpetrators to justice as soon as possible. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
And still on the same, the family of the slain lawyer, Charlo Mbobu, is demanding justice for their beloved kin, who was shot on Tuesday evening along Magadi Road in Nairobi's Karen area. Third born in a family of 12, the late advocate is being described as the family's pillar of strength and wisdom, as Seth Olale tells us in the following report.
Frail, lonely and heartbroken. This is the late Mbobu's 86-year-old mother, accompanied by her younger son. This family in Mayani village in Muka sub-county, Makueni County, is devastated.
Ni jambo la kuhuzunisha sana. Wakili ambaye anafanya kazi yake na mtu ambaye ni wa kutumainiwa.
The late Matthew Charlo Mbobu, who served as an advocate of the High Court for 37 years, has been eulogized as the family's pillar of strength and wisdom.
Wakili ambaye alikuwa mtu wa kutumainiwa, wakili ambaye alifuata sheria zote ambazo zimewekwa za mawakili za kufanya kazi.
The bereaved family is demanding justice following the brutal daylight execution of the late Charlo Mbobu.
Yetu ni kuappeal kwa serikali. Hiyo jambo iangaliwe sana, ichunguzwe, kwa sababu tunahitaji kuwa na freedom of movement. Tunahitajika as professionals, we need to do our work without fear of intimidation.
Mbobu's brother, who is also a lawyer, says the cold-blooded execution of his brother sends a chilling message to Kenya's legal practitioners.
We don't have to look over our shoulders to see who could be pursuing us, particularly when we are doing sensitive cases or we are involved in our professional work.
The late Mbobu was also a respected lecturer at the University of Nairobi and the Kenya School of Law. Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
Detectives from Kasarani Police Station are holding 6 suspects in connection with the suspicious death of Victor Mwangi, which occurred in the early hours of Sunday morning on Lumumba Drive, Roysambu. Preliminary forensic findings suggest Victor sustained blunt force trauma with multiple injuries on his body before his death. And as Ode Francis now reports, Victor had last been seen in the company of some ladies on the 4th floor of the same building. He was found motionless on the ground floor.
Investigators arrived at the apartment complex on Lumumba Drive, where the incident is believed to have taken place. The 4th floor of the building is suspected to be the location from which Victor fell or was pushed while in the company of a group of youths. Victor, in the company of several friends, had attended an event in one of the apartments in the building. A neighbor who sought anonymity told us what transpired on Saturday, the 7th day of September 2025.
After the group, I think we both later. After a few minutes, I think the fracas happened huko juu. So jamani kama alikuwa anatolewa kwa stairs, maybe apelekwa atoke. Alikuwa amepigwa namba. Wanapiga sistangu. Kitu kama hiyo. So wale mtu anafaa kutafuta ni mwenye kuna sister ama kuna mtu anaitwa sister. Yes.
Several young women are seen entering and exiting premises repeatedly.
I mean, nisikia tu akisema yako sawa. Kujeni tupeleke. So gate kabanga alafu nikasikia panguza gate sasa. Nashangaa hapa ukakupanguza gate nini napanguza.
Shortly after, an Uber vehicle is seen arriving and departing. The car is later traced to JKLive Hospital, where Victor was admitted around 3:47 a.m. CCTV captured this young man who is seen rushing inside the hospital's reception with blood on his upper clothing. He is accompanied by 2 other young men, one identified as the vehicle's driver. In CCTV footage, this man, termed as a good Samaritan in police reports, appeared uneasy all the time he was at the hospital. He was among 3 people who had taken Victor to hospital.
It was a very bad scene because when he was brought, he had fractures along the on his ribs and also along the chest wall. The health team tried to resuscitate him through CPR, which was unsuccessful. When he came, the vital signs were unrecordable, and at around 4:27, he was declared dead.
Staff at the JKLive Hospital called police after confirming Victor's death. A post-mortem examination conducted later at Nairobi Funeral Home revealed he had died from blunt force trauma.
Nimeona vile imefanyika, nasikia ni kitu inaniuma kabisa. He is my only son, lakini I hope justice will be done and the culprits will be got.
What we are demanding is justice because it was a brutal death. Vile ameumia mpaka huku kifua kimejaa damu na kichwa na miguu.
We've been having these cases along this road in Roysambu. So our emergency department is always ready for these cases.
The search for the truth and justice for Victor Mwangi is far from over. Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
18 high-profile graft cases from 15 counties have been withdrawn by the Office of the Director of Public prosecutions since 2013, despite the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission submitting what it now says were watertight investigation files. The commission now says its lack of prosecutorial powers has severely undermined its ability to hold corrupt officials accountable and recover stolen public funds at both levels of governments. Here is Melita Oletenges.
A long-standing tough war between the ESCC and the ODPP has resurfaced as the latest report to the Senate County's Public Accounts Committee (CPAC) reveals how completed graft investigations have repeatedly stalled at the prosecution stage.
The DPP withdraws charges against one individual and then later decides to withdraw charges against the whole group. So in most of these cases, that is the scenario.
According to ESCC, the trend not only weakens public confidence in anti-corruption efforts, but also wastes significant resources invested in investigations, especially when cases are dropped without proper consultation. Senators have questioned the rationale behind the ODPP's decisions, raising concerns about transparency and the lack of collaboration between the two key institutions.
The DPP even has gone ahead and said in Republic versus Ali Buno Korana and 4 others that the DPP indicated that the money has been misappropriated, but DPP had recovered the money. So when DPP recovers the money that had been misappropriated, where is it taken to?
Even if he has powers, honestly, and this is your case, he doesn't know how much money you have put into investigation. And he just sits there, withdraws the case without consulting you. There is a problem in one of the institutions, whether dissolve ESCC or we dissolve DPP. I mean, what do we say? Yeah.
In response, ESCC is urging lawmakers to consider amending the law to grant the Commission prosecutorial powers, arguing that doing so would lead to more consistent and successful outcomes in court.
And they have the sole responsibility to decide which case goes forward, which case is withdrawn, and there is no other person who can intervene on that matter. And that is not because of the individual holding the office, but is the provision of the law.
As we give you the product, we wait for feedback. So, in short, Chair, Senator Wambua, that comes from the DPP because he's the one who has the product. But it depends on the goodwill of the DPP.
The CPAC has now directed the ESCC to compile and submit files on withdrawn cases within 14 days. The Senate is also planning to summon both the ODPP and ESCC for a joint session to address the growing disconnect in Kenya's anti-graft war. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
And Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Saboti lawmaker Caleb Amisi say compensation for protest victims is meaningless without justice for those who lost their loved ones. Speaking during a youth advocacy meeting at Ufungamano House here in Nairobi County, Kalonzo said the government has already accepted responsibility for atrocities against the youth during the demonstrations and must now ensure every victim gets deserved justice.
And then the state will say, we'll compensate you. We'll kill you, then compensate you. My honest submission is let there be a blanket admission by this administration that they wrongfully detained, they wrongfully maimed, they destroyed people's property and blamed it on other wrong people, that there must be a blanket apology to the Kenyan nation. That would be something. But you cannot just, compensation without justice is not compensation. Honestly, there must be justice and demonstrable ability to say sorry.
I think I've been in so many of these youth advocacy meetings until I've exhausted. I just need to listen to you and let's have a conversation.
The President's Constitutional and Human Rights Advisor, Professor Makau Mutua, who as well chairs that panel, which has come under fire, will be on the bench in response to some of those issues that have been raised, and of course, your questions and clarifications. In the meantime, Democracy for Citizens Party, DCP, has announced that it has withdrawn its candidate in the Mbeere North constituency by-election. Instead, the party will throw its weight behind the Democratic Party candidate in the election set for November. The decision by the party has already seen exodus of members from the party in Embu County as disgruntled aspirants who are asked to step down protest the party's decision. Here's Emmanuel Toh with that report.
The race for the high-stakes Mbeere North constituency by-election took another twist Wednesday as the DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua announced the party had decided to step down from the race to allow their Democratic Party candidate a chance.
Acknowledging that the seat was previously held by the Democratic Party and should rightfully be retained for the party's candidate to complete a full term, and hence DCP has agreed to give support to the Democratic Party candidate.
Already the decision has split the DCP party in the constituency, with its former frontrunner Duncan Boy decamping to the former CS Moses Kuria's Chama cha Kazi party.
Watu wetu wa Mbeere North tumekataa maneno ya kirani ama bado tuko kwa kirani? Wao wanasema tumekataa maneno ya kirani wa mkono wa juu.
Mbeere North hoye! Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki and Public Service CS Geoffrey Ruku have been on the ground mobilizing support, promising a political war against the opposition rivals in the November 27th polls. DP Kindiki has recently brokered a truce among the aspirants.
I will not let you down as Gen Z. Gen Z hoye! Gen Z hoye!
You're just the first among equals. Kweli si kweli? Tutapata hii kiti jameni? Tutapata hii kiti?
DCP has also withdrawn candidates in Momboni Ward, Machakos County. The party has also stood down candidates in Kabuchai Chwele Ward in Bungoma County, giving DAP Kenya a chance. DCP has, however, declined to withdraw its candidate in the equally hot Malava constituency by-election, with DAP Kenya party also standing its ground not to withdraw its candidate. Meanwhile, campaigns for the UDA nomination slot in Baringo County have gathered pace, with aspirants hitting the ground running with the campaigns. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The bench takes a break here on the broadcast. When we come back, some stories to run you through, and there will be the President's advisor on the Constitution and Human Rights, a fierce critic of Deputy President William Ruto before the election. And now he's chairing the panel which was constituted to focus on compensating victims of demonstrations here in the country. And a limited line to that, 2017 will be the starting point, and will put to him what it seeks to achieve and whether there will be justice and overweighed by compensation. That is all coming up on the bench here on the broadcast. Stay tuned. On the bench tonight, the cost and the price of demonstrations. We are live with Professor Makau Mutua, the chair of the compensation panel.
Tomorrow on Tonight, News Gang. Our language does all of this and more. The more the milk, the better the chai. Chai Kweli in a Brookside Dairy Best.
Introducing Shinda Milioni, where every dream can become a reality. For every 2,000 shillings deposit, you earn 1 point. The more points you collect, the higher your chances of winning big. There will be 10 winners of 50,000 shillings weekly and 1 lucky monthly winner of 1 million shillings. Get started today. Make your deposits, build up points, and watch your chances soar. Shinda Milioni is open to all new and existing I&M Bank customers. Open your account on the I&M Bank OTG app, deposit more, and win big. I&M Bank, on your side.
Mwazini wait.
Bei ya leo premium, si complicated. Kupika leo premium, si complicated. Unabai, unapika, unashiba. Lea premium.
Lea Premium Flour, nurturing the world. Available in a store near you.
Rudishiwa 100% transaction fee ukitransact na any pay bill across the country. Ukitransfer chapa from your bank to Airtel Money. Ukiwithdraw chapa from an Airtel Money agent. Buy Smarter Bundle today. Dial *544# or use My Airtel app. Na bado tuna grow. Asanteni wa Kenya.
Your mother's love is with you wherever you go. It starts with little moments of courage to stepping out into the new world with confidence. Stay soft. Nothing lasts like mom's love.
Kote nchini mbele tuendelee.
Kenya Twende Mbele. NCBA. Go for it.
Hello ladies.
What?
So where do you want to go?
We want food. Shopping. We want a Kenyan line.
Okay, let's go.
Lipa napo. In Kenya, we put la biashara.
Thank you, Mom. Okay, let's go, guys.
So you also take M-Pesa?
Of course, Kenya is M-Pesa nation.
Pay, borrow, invest safely and securely. Over 50 million Kenyans. One network. Safaricom M-Pesa. Popote ulipo.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. The Kenya Kwanza administration came to power against the backdrop of host of pledges, including the provision of universal health coverage. 3 years later, the President William Ruto-led administration is navigating challenges that have come with the rollout of Social Health Authority that manages universal health funds in the country. Brenda Wanga reports on the ups and downs that have characterized the journey to UHC under the Kenya Kwanza government.
We have committed to the people of Kenya that we will have a universal health insurance that will make sure that...
It was one of the bold promises then presidential candidate William Ruto made to Kenyans before they handed him the country's presidency.
I, William Samoei Ruto.
And when he took office, he pledged to put the health of every Kenyan citizen at the heart of his bottom-up agenda. The reforms in the health sector centered on moving from a system of out-of-pocket payments to a comprehensive preventative model.
Hatuwezi kuendelea watu wachache ndio wanaweza kwenda hospitali. Wale wengine afanye harambee, auze ng'ombe, auze mali ndio apate matibabu. Ndio tukasema lazima tuwe na usawa hii Kenya.
The government's first move was to reform the existing systems. The National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF, was scrapped, and SHA, the Social Health Authority, was birthed, managing 3 distinct funds: the Primary Health Fund, the Social Health Insurance Fund, SHIF, and the Emergency, Chronic and Critical Illnesses Fund. But the road to UHC has not been without its bumps. The transition from NHIF to SHA has been a major point of contention. Court cases delayed its rollout, with challenges to the constitutionality of the 2.75% deduction to fund SHIF. But even with the legal hurdles out of the way, technical hitches with registration and onboarding of members soon arose, particularly for those in the informal sector. Initial delays in the disbursement of funds to health facilities were other challenges that lay in wait as UHC, as envisioned under the President William Ruto's government, unfolded. Now in its second year, Taifa Care under SHA continues to grapple with even more problems. Aside from the financial constraints, the program also has to deal with a serious shortfall of health workers that are needed to ensure full UHC coverage countrywide. Questions have also been raised about the modalities and justification for the payouts made to hospitals for provision of services.
Sasa nyinyi ndio people watu wanafikiri ni sisi tunasema, consumers wanasema inafanya kazi haifanyi. You know what has been happening in the Ministry of Health. You know how they are eating money from SHA.
Allegations of the very graft that the government sought to eliminate by doing away with NHIF have in the recent past plagued SHA, with mounting pressure for accountability for the public funds used. Consequently, close to 100 health facilities suspected to have schemed to defraud SHA have been closed, with the government promising strict monitoring. The government has targeted to register over 30 million Kenyans by the end of this year and to achieve full coverage of 55 million Kenyans by 2027, when the government would have served its first full term. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
On this date.
Remaining on health, chronic illnesses weigh heavily on patients, not just medically, but also financially and emotionally. When the Kenya Kwanza administration launched the Social Health Authority, many Kenyans living with long-term conditions hoped for relief. A year after the rollout of the National Insurance Fund, some patients say the initiative has eased part of their burden. But frequent system failures continue to frustrate access to medical care across the country. Emily Chebet reports on the experiences of those living with chronic diseases under the new health scheme.
At the Kenyatta National Hospital, Benson Kamau has come to collect his post-kidney transplant medication, commonly known as immunosuppressant. Diagnosed with kidney disease in 2017, his health worsened until 2022 when both his kidneys failed, forcing him to undergo a transplant with a donation from his sibling. The journey has been long, tough and financially draining. Benson says his cost of kidney transplant and treatment nearly drove him to bankruptcy.
Mimi nilikuwa na shamba utawala na nilikuwa nimeanza kujenga, ilibidi nikauza. So after nimefanywa transplant, so ilibidi tena niuze gari ndio niweze kukua na keta hizi dawa, natumia za 36,000 mpaka saa hizi zimepungua, zina range around 15,500.
At the oncology section of Kenyatta National Hospital is Linda Chieng, a cancer patient from Kisumu County. She was referred here after several visits to facilities in Nyanza region. Boaz Okodo has also been frequenting the hospital with his mother, who is battling ovarian cancer. She has experiences similar to Linda's.
Niliambiwa hiyo kansa imepatikana kama imesha spread kwa lungs na bladder. Sasa nilipewa transfer nikukuja Kenyatta.
Madhe alikuwa amelemewa sana. Madhe alikuwa mtu tu unambeba, unamshika, juu alikuwa very weak. Sema tu bedridden. So after that sasa tukaenda Bondo, tukajaribu, ikakataa, tukaenda Siaya.
For patients battling chronic illnesses, healthcare is not a choice, it is a lifeline. For kidney recipients like Benson, SHA covers up to 200,000 shillings per year. That's about 16,000 shillings per month for post-care medication, a cost that was not included under the defunct NHIF. For kidney transplantation, SHA covers up to 700,000 Kenya shillings, while pre-transplant checkups are supported up to 150,000 Kenya shillings per year.
Kuna hizi dawa na gojea nichukue kama saa hizi. Ukiangalia hapa, niko na hizi dawa. zinakuja around 15,445, ambayo ni pesa mzuri kwa watu kama sisi wako na shida ya figo, kwa sababu sidhani kuna mtu anaweza enda kupe 15,000.
Pesa yenye natoa hapa Kenyatta ni ya consultation, kuona daktari na hizo madawa tu. Lakini SHA inanisimamia kila kitu.
354,000. Second bill SHA ililipa ilikuwa around 280,000. Nyingine ilikuwa around 150,000. Na nyingine ilikuwa around 80,000.
Patients say the social health authority system is slow, unpredictable and often down when they need it most. On Tuesday at Kenyatta National Hospital, several patients were turned away following a 3-hour system downtime that disrupted service delivery. For Emma Wambui, another cancer patient, the frustration is not just about delays but also lack of critical medication and services in public hospitals.
Injection I have to do for 18 months. So I realized SHA can pay chemo, but injection, because it's a new medicine, inaitwa Go haiwezi, because per injection it's 234,000.
Dawa zikuwe kwa hizi hospitali. Hii kutoka hapa kuna dawa nje ni expensive sana. So unapata kama dawa SHA inazalipa, but dawa kuna.
For patients living with chronic illnesses, there is urgent need for more funding, stronger systems, decentralization of services such as renal care and oncology. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV.
Still on health, a bold pledge in President William Ruto's manifesto, dubbed as Better, was universal healthcare coverage, forming one of the major pillars for every Kenyan. 3 years on, the Social Health Authority, SHA, as it is known, is at the heart of that vision, with primary healthcare as its anchor. Nearly a year later and into its rollout, the healthcare program has drawn mixed reactions. Some Kenyans hail it as a life-changing, easing medical bills and making care accessible. On the flip side, for others, the mandatory premiums remain out of reach. Tonight, we assess the Social Health Authority's promise, its wins and its stumbles. And here is Mary Mwoki.
At Ngoloni Health Center in Machakos County, mothers stream in with their children for routine clinic visits. Some do so without a worry about the bills, confident that SHA will take care of everything. Others are not so hopeful. The Primary Healthcare Act of 2023 promised free access to essential services, from immunization and maternal care to treatment of common diseases. Yet, for some like Cynthia Kavenge, the annual payment demanded upfront remains prohibitive, as majority of unsalaried Kenyans can still not afford it.
Imekuwa na changamoto mingi sana, manake you have to pay annually, na sio kila mtu mwenye ako na mapato ya kulipa kwa mwaka. Mgonjwa
akikuja hapa, hata kama labda hajajisajili ama amesajiliwa, labda anajifanya malipo yake ya kila mwezi, anapata huduma ya matibabu.
The financial challenges notwithstanding, majority however speak of relief, grateful that they no longer shoulder bills alone.
Na ilisaidia sana wakati tulimpeleka Machakos, na kwa malipo yake mimi naona iko na manufaa mazuri.
Across the country, 26 million Kenyans have registered under SHA. The Health Cabinet Secretary says usage of public health facilities has surged dramatically.
Under NHIF, only 36% of Kenyans were going to public health facilities. But as we speak today, close to 58-59% of Kenyans have shifted back.
Here in Nairobi, in Embakasi South, the Kware Dispensary, a Level 2 facility, is bustling with activity. The hospital, which is a key primary healthcare network, has seen a surge in numbers since the rollout of SHA. The hospital attributes the increase to the timely reimbursement of SHA claims and the ring fencing of the Facility Improvement Fund, which they say has kept the hospital fully operational.
We've seen the way the uptake has been in terms of the numbers. We were seeing around 250 patients, but now the number has even doubled. You can see how busy our facility is.
We were claiming for per delivery, 2,500 per delivery. And since the onset of SHA, we claimed 10,000 per delivery, which is able to sustain our needs.
But the biggest test lies in whether drugs are available when patients need them. Stockouts have become a familiar frustration for health seekers in hospitals across the country, with KEMSA being blamed for inefficiency. The Health Cabinet Secretary Aidan Duale, however, says the government is working to ensure KEMSA is fixed.
Today, the fill rate of KEMSA, as we speak this morning, is going to about 60%. We have now secured another 10 billion credit line with Kenya Commercial Bank. And we must make sure that they take it to 95% by November.
Critics have called the SHA financing model unsustainable. There's also concerns about the benefit limits under SHA, with media reports documenting tens of patients whose covers have run out and they are forced to pay out of pocket for the remainder of the financial year.
Kenyans will go for twice a week for dialysis, have no problem because they will be paid by SHA. But those who go for 3, then the third session, they have to pay. But when your cover is exhausted, then automatically you will now go to this other fund.
Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
When we get back from the break, we'll run you through business stories. But before that, the bench will be accommodating Professor Makau Mutua, who is the President's constitutional advisor and on human rights, amongst other issues. And he's the chair of the panel that the head of state had empaneled to look into the compensation of victims of demonstrations in the country. We'll be talking to him, as well as, of course, welcoming your contributions here on the broadcast. After the break, on the bench. Stay tuned. On the bench tonight, the cost and the price of demonstrations. We are live with Professor Makau Mutua, the chair. Welcome back. This is Jeff Kwenange Live, and on the bench is Professor Makau Mutua. He is the President's constitutional advisor, as well as on the issues of human rights, the chair of the panel that was composed by the head of state to look into compensation of victims of demonstrations or protests in the country and dating back to 2017. Prof, many thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back here. It's been a long time. And I was just wondering as I was coming in whether the fire extinguisher still works. Yeah. Does it still work?
If need be.
If need be?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure you don't use it.
It's a tool for deployment.
It's a tool for deployment.
Many thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
It's been 3 years since we had our last conversation.
Yes, true.
Okay, let's get direct into it.
Yes.
And it's a sad day for the legal fraternity, is it, in the country. Experienced advocate and evidence law expert, a teacher of many, was killed.
Yeah.
Was he someone known to you?
I knew him, not very well. Last night I was just, settling down after, a long day's work. And then I opened my phone and I saw this horrible news. I could not believe what I was reading. It appeared to be a gangland execution, which really shuddered me at the time, because if that can happen to such a person in such an area, then I think we need to think more about security in this country and safety.
Yeah. All right, and these as investigations are ongoing. So let's get into the panel that was formed by the head of state, and you advise him on constitutional and human rights matters.
Yes.
We'll come to the array of issues that have happened ever since his election in 2022. But first, before even compensation, there's an absurdity, is it, in the cases of Kenyans, more than 70, who are charged with terrorism law for taking part in demonstrations. Should that be your starting point first?
You see, Abdulkader, the performance of democracy is a very difficult thing. I said when we were speaking at KICC on Katiba Day that our constitution, our democracy, is only 15 years of age. And so we are learning how to perform particularly the right to assembly, the right to speak, and the right to associate. It's a complex process for us to master this ritual of democracy. And so what we have seen over the last 2 years, June 2024, And then the first part of this year is regrettable. We've seen scenes that are somewhat dystopian, quite frankly, where, the police have clashed with demonstrators. A lot of people have lost their lives, most of those being civilians, but of course some law enforcement. So I think what we are doing is responding to this pain that people are suffering. People have lost their loved ones. And I think on the law enforcement side, I think they are trying to grapple with how you address such an outcome. But what my panel seeks to do is to, first of all, to cool down temperatures in the country. Because, people have lost loved ones. People have lost children, their fathers, breadwinners. These are very serious things to happen in our country. And so what we want to do is to do two things initially, is to compensate the victims by dignifying them, but also giving them compensation that will give them an economic meaning for their lives. Some of them to start all over again because what they had was taken away. So that's compensation and reparation. But then over the long term, we want to think about how do you really perform Article 37 of the Constitution.
On demonstrations.
On demonstrations.
We'll come to the specific aspect of that and also the compensation concept and the process, all right?
Yes, yes.
But also as an intellectual who has written extensively about democracies and how they ought to function, is it not preposterous that demonstrators are charged with terrorism law? That's an injustice, is it? Especially to young Kenyans who even can't afford the bond to be out of jails.
I mean, as I said, I think the state is grappling with how do you deal with particular acts that go beyond simply picketing, demonstrating and assembling. I think in some certain cases, I think, actions that were taken by demonstrators were, were frankly shocking. I mean, we saw that, for example, a police officer, being killed. We saw law enforcement infrastructure being razed to the ground. We saw, in 2024, we saw the Parliament, the National Assembly, almost being burned down. So these are serious, serious offenses. And so I think our legal system ought to look at that and decide what kind of offenses, fit those kinds of, what kinds of crimes, fit those offenses.
Yeah. So let's come to the constitution of the panel that you chair.
Yes.
And of course, there is a court matter following a petition that was found. But ideally, first, have you appealed against the ruling by the High Court?
We are now discussing our response, and it will be evident in the next day or so.
Yeah. I don't want to cross the bridge before reaching it, but what happens if the court finds that the constitution of the panel that you chair is unconstitutional, null and void?
Well, luckily our judicial system provides an appellate process. So we'll, of course, engage the High Court, respond, and if necessary, make an appeal all the way to the top, because we believe ourselves that this is a necessary process for this country to bring national healing, to bring closure to what happened, and so that we can, as a country, open a new page, a new chapter in this country's history in terms of how we perform, as I said, Article 37.
Of the Constitution.
Of the Constitution.
But ideally also, as a scholar, you understand that in such situations where there are excesses by the state, clearly there are laid out procedures for the perpetrators to be brought to book, isn't it?
Yes.
They are prosecuted and victims compensated via a judicial process. Obviously, on the question of accountability, what more value do you think that the panel you chair will add to this when there are clear processes?
So I just want to make clear that there are several limbs of justice. One limb clearly is a judicial process where, for example, perpetrators are held to account in a court of law. Another limb of justice is truth-telling. People appearing in public forums and telling their own truth about what happened to them, naming perpetrators so that they can be shamed. But ultimately, also, there has to be damages paid to those who are harmed. And I want to just make it clear that compensation is a key part of justice. Because at the end of the day, even if you go through a court process, the end result will be either or both the jailing, the sentencing to jail or the perpetrator, and if there's a civil component to it, then the award of damages. Yeah. What we are doing now is to make sure that people whose family members have been lost and who are grieving, and in many cases, some of these are breadwinners. There's no one else left to help them. For example, I was listening to a young woman at KICC the other day who told a horrible story about what has happened to her since her husband, was killed. So we want to make sure that such a person can be given something. We cannot, of course, return her husband back. That is not possible. Okay. But we want to make sure that we can give her something that can, put her back on our feet again. Okay.
And Prof, when we get back from the break, yes, we now extensively get into that and also the formation of it, whether it is an extension to advance President William Ruto and the former Prime Minister who you advised, and now you are advising the President, yes, and their political cause. Yes. And also talk about compensation plus justice, all that, and also your previous political stances here on the broadcast, given that the country has as well a long history of non-implementation of recommendations like a panel of this caliber.
I look Professor Makau,
yes. Yeah. Professor Makau Mutua is on the bench. He advises the President on the Constitution and Human Rights Affairs, critic of his before the election, and he now chairs the panel that was put together by the head of state, here to talk about all. And we, of course, welcome your contributions as well as the victims who have responded to our poster when we loaded that on our social media handles. We'll be putting them on the magic wall. And we are back on the bench after the break here on the broadcast. Stay tuned. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Manufacturers continue to decry the high and unpredictable taxation regime in the country, saying it remains a great impediment to foreign direct investment in Kenya. This as the country seeks for an ambitious target of attracting $2 billion of investments in Kenya. Jimmy Mbogo now tells us of the plans to increase that figure from the current $150 million, close to 20 billion Kenya shillings, and how to attract more foreign investment into the manufacturing sector.
Cause. We are our own enemy. This is the perception of Kenya's manufacturers, who now warn that the sector is being weighed down by heightened taxation and unpredictable policy shift by the taxman.
They block you in order to just extract money, right? A small startup has no hope in Kenya today because there's 100, 200,000 shillings worth of licenses. We have to move away from license Raj. We don't want to be a license Raj. For a startup, there should be no licenses, just one certificate and that's it.
A concern that comes at the time when the Nairobi International Financial Center is racing to position the country as a regional investment hub with an ambitious goal of attracting $2 billion in foreign direct investment by 2028.
What are we trying to do? We're trying to ensure that we create that enabling environment for it to be easier for people to have an ease of doing business. So we want to increase our ease of doing business to pass from where we are to of course, become a top 10 of ease of doing business, and to up to top 6 ease of doing business by 2028.
This, the government hopes, will not only unlock foreign direct investment, but also address liquidity challenges facing the manufacturing sector.
We're focused on manufacturing because developing a strong manufacturing sector is an important part of growing any resilient economy and creating jobs. And as we all know, there's a large number of young people hitting the Kenyan job market every year.
If we want to unlock FDI into manufacturing, we've got to do one thing simply. We've got to make ourselves more competitive in Kenya.
Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Kenya has sealed new partnerships with Estonia to expand renewable energy and clean technology investment, reinforcing the country's role as a regional hub for climate innovation. The initiative, which will scale up climate-smart solutions, will be giving local firms access to technology transfers, joint ventures and new markets in Europe. Estonia's ambassador to Kenya says the collaboration builds on the country's leadership in climate action, positioning it as a key partner in advancing sustainability and green jobs. The move also reflects rising global interest in Kenya as a launchpad for clean tech and a driver of Europe and African cooperation in green transition.
Financing together. I think Estonia brings a stamp of approval that everybody knows is a leader in digitalization and in startups. So that adds, it's an added value that our companies can offer.
The green conversation is a live opportunity now in terms of where we're going as a country and how we're enhancing ourselves as a country. So when we look at opportunities between Kenya and Estonia, Estonia has had a track record in terms of supporting green, supporting clean, right? Clean and data work hand in hand. So when you're looking at that transition, you're looking at Kenya has a lot of data, a lot of people are holding data, but what are they doing with that data?
Potato farmers in Kenya could soon say goodbye to the costly battle against late blight disease. At the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization's biotechnology site in Muguga, scientists are developing a genetically modified potato that promises to resist the devastating disease and lower farming cost plus increase in yields. Dennis Otieno tells us more on this week's Smart Farm.
The potato is Kenya's second most important food crop after maize. But year after year, farmers lose billions of shillings to late blight, a devastating disease that can wipe out entire farms. But here in Muguga, scientists believe they have found a solution, a genetically modified or biotech potato that could withstand the disease and change the future of potato farming.
For this reason, Carol and its partners, International Potato Center, it was able to come up and develop a potato product that is the genetically modified potato, the biotech potato. And the potato that was transformed was the popularly known potato variety, that is the Shangi variety, which is susceptible to the late blight disease that is quite devastating into the farmer's field.
The research journey has taken over a decade, moving from lab tests to confined field trials under strict regulation.
To come up with this variety, we have taken about 12 years to come up with this variety. But we started testing these potato varieties into our lab around 2017. In 2021, we came and started testing the Shangi events. We also have other events that we have transformed, the Tigoni and also the Asante.
So what makes this biotech potato different from the traditional one?
The difference between the conventionally bred potato variety and the transformed variety is that the transgenic potato variety is able to withstand late blight. But in terms of other characteristics, the morphological, there are no differences because the trait that we were targeting, it is only one trait, the late blight resistance.
For farmers, that means they will spend less on pesticides and labor and still harvest more.
So what it means is that there will be cost reduction in terms of the fungicides, in terms of labor for the fungicide application. The cost will be reduced from 10 to 15%. And overall probably gain against the non-controlled conventionally bred potato, the farmer will get about 34% yield gain. Yes, in terms of the biotech potato.
Experts say this technology could also make farming more attractive to young people.
We expect that farmers, once this technology reaches their hands, will benefit by reducing the amounts of spray from about 12 rounds of spray to maybe less than 3. And this, of course, saves on their input costs, as well as, assures the farmer well-being. The knapsack carrying that is usually done when spraying is back-breaking, sometimes even discouraging our young people from farming. And we want to have young people also embracing agriculture.
The final hurdle now is regulatory approval before the potato can be released to farmers. Like any genetically modified crop, approval starts with KALRO's Institutional Biosafety Committee, then moves to the National Biosafety Authority for trial and release approvals. NEMA clears environmental aspects, while KEFIS handles performance trials, seed certification and variety registration, with final policy oversight from the Ministry of Agriculture or Cabinet.
Assuming that the national performance trials commence in October, for example, and it takes 6 months, we are looking at mid-next year for all the reports to support the recommendation for release coming in mid-next year. And then after that, it will depend on the other authorities, including the Cabinet Secretary responsible for agriculture, to make a formal public declaration that the variety has been released for cultivation.
If approved for commercial use, scientists are confident that this potato variety could be in Kenyan farms in just a few seasons, offering not just a better crop, but a smarter way to farm. Dennis Otieno, Smart Farm.
Business News brought to you by Safaricom Business.
Tukitaka kugrow zaidi, we choose partners with solutions that get us there. You could also power your progress. Join Safaricom Business today. Power your progress at business.safaricom.co.ke.
And time for sports. Kenya's Police Bullets Football Club has booked a semi-final slot in the ongoing Sekafa Women Champions League qualifiers following their 2-0 win over Denden FC of Eritrea. In the match played at the Nyayo National Stadium here in Nairobi, the Beldin Odemba-led side scored the important goals in the first half through Emily Moranga and Zaina Namuleme. The Kenya Women Premier League champions will know their opponents on Thursday when the group matches will conclude.
It was a good match. Denden have improved from their first match, of course, but the good thing is we were playing to either get a draw or to win, and we won it. On the flip side, we created a lot of chances. We only missed them now. It's for us to work and make sure that we create them and we get goals from them.
The government has directed sports federations and associations in Kenya to improve their governance structures to attract sufficient investment from the private sector. The Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports, Salim Vuria, termed the opaque, rigid and unresponsive governance systems in federations as a major impediment for the private sector's involvement in Kenya's sports sector. The CS was speaking on Wednesday at Kasarani during a meeting with officials of over 140 federations and associations. The meeting was called to streamline the operations of the sports bodies.
That it is very clear, it is very key that we work together on matters governance issues that will also strengthen mechanisms of accountability. Mechanisms of accountability will also help us to see who we can work with in the private sector to develop sports in our country.
The ministry is willing to work with the federations to be able to access private funding, which we know no one person is able to take care of all sporting federation needs. So that partnership is very important.
The government is also speeding up the construction of Ithokwe Stadium in Kitwe town to ensure it's ready to host next month's Mashujaa Day celebrations. Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki said the 10,000 capacity stadium, which is being put up at a cost of 700 million shillings, is nearing completion and is expected to be ready on time to host the national celebrations. The signature project is being put up to international standards as the government targets using it for international matches and other sporting events. The Safaricom Chapadimba All-Stars boys team showed remarkable resilience to register a huge win in their first match of the tour of the Huesca in Spain. The All-Stars thrashed SD Huesca under-23 side 6-1 in a friendly match played yesterday at the Academy's grounds in Spain. Brian Aroca set the tone with the opening goal, with Derek Okech adding the second goal to make it 2-0 at halftime. The floodgates opened in the second half as the All-Stars pinned their opponents in their own half. They scored further goals through Dennis Okumu, who scored a brace, Felix Munguti and Nicolas Lopez on goal. The goals would have been more, but the All-Stars were guilty of wasting countless chances, especially in the opening half of the match. The Kenya Cadet and Junior Wrestling team returned from African Beach Wrestling Championship in Casablanca, Morocco, where they clinched 7 medals. The team collected 4 gold medals in the 65 kg under 17 years, 57 kgs under 20 years, 65 kgs under 15 years, and 70 kgs under 20 years. Kenya also won 2 silvers and a bronze medal in the impressive performance in North Africa.
Game ilikuwa hard, but tulijaribu kadri wezavyo. Hatukutaka kuaibisha makochi wetu. Tunawashukuru kwa kazi nzuri. Na pia tunafurahi. In junior tulitoka tukua wa kwanza. Tuna appreciate kazi yetu. In senior tulijaribu, but next time we promise you tutaifanya ikue kama ya junior, pia ikue smart. Tukuja na ushindi pia.
We are done with news, we are done with business, and we are done with sports. And on the bench is Professor Makau Mutua, who is the constitutional advisor to President William Ruto. And among other issues, human rights, he has been extensively writing that on his op-ed columns with the major publications in the country. And on the bench, we'll be talking about the compensation process and the many questions that you have sent us, which we will be putting to him, and also his previous political stances before the election in 2022. All that is coming up after the break here on The Bench with the Professor.